This set is so much better, and the set that is so much better is... Hey guys, this is JP's LEGO Reviews. Today I'm going to be comparing the LEGO Technic Land Rover Defender to the LEGO Technic McLaren Formula 1 set. Now, I'm going to break down the display ability, how realistic they are, the value proposition, the building experience, and then the functionality of these sets. So, let's compare it and break it down. When it comes to the display ability of these two sets, it's very, very close, but it slightly goes to the McLaren. The reason why is it just simply looks cleaner. The Land Rover the things about it, including the blue studs, the steering wheel on top, and just some of the design elements of the Land Rover, it doesn't make it feel as displayable as the McLaren. And even though it's a very slight sort of win for the McLaren still is slightly more displayable than the Land Rover Defender. Now, let's move on to how realistic both of them look. Now, this is a category that I have to give to the McLaren again. And the reason why is the Land Rover, as it looks now, actually looks quite realistic. But take all the top sort of stuff off, and you can see that there's something really off with its proportions. Meanwhile, with the McLaren, the proportions of it look a lot better, and it looks very realistic compared to the Formula 1 car that actually exists. And yeah, the McLaren just has more features in it that makes it look more realistic than what the Land Rover does. And there's a few things about the Land Rover that makes it feel less realistic than the McLaren. But they still look pretty good for what they are, and they're both really still good to display too. Now, let's move on to the value proposition. Now, this is a category where the Land Rover just storms off. It's the winner by miles. Now, for only $30 more, the Land Rover has 1,000 more pieces. But let's forget about piece count, because the Land Rover just comes with so much more. It has more mass than the McLaren, showing that it's more densely built. And the McLaren is more shell-like. Like, it's very much just a pretty shell. Meanwhile, the Land Rover has a lot of functionality in it, and it hides quite a lot of things inside it. And plus, the Land Rover brings you the top-level supercar building experience like the Bugatti Chiron, and it truly brings it down to a cheaper price point. Meanwhile, the McLaren just replicates the good looks of these supercars, but it doesn't really replicate anything else apart from just the looks of the supercars. But now, let's move on to the building experiences of both of these sets, since the Land Rover has a better value. Now, when it comes to building experience, I have to give it to the Land Rover again. And the reason why is simply because you're just building more intricate things. With the McLaren, like I said before, it's a shell. It's a really nice looking shell, and I like the way it looks. I like the fact that it's a Formula 1 car, that's why I bought it. But the car doesn't have too much functionality other than what you can literally see. Meanwhile, the Land Rover has quite a lot of functionality that you just cannot see at a surface level. But when you look deeper into the car, you really will realize that there's quite a lot of detail in the set that you may not have known that exists in the set. But the McLaren, it's a less interesting building experience just because you're not building as much sort of functionality, and you're more just building an exoskeleton to the piston, steering, and the suspension that the Land Rover has, plus way more. Now, let's move on to the functionality of the set. This category again goes to the Land Rover Defender. The reason why is because with major functions, the McLaren has three: pistons, steering, and suspension. But so does the Land Rover. But then the Land Rover has a winch, it has a gear shifting selector, it has a low range to high range selector, plus you can put it to positive and negative. The steering actually can be done from two different locations, up top and in the steering wheel. Meanwhile, the McLarens can only be done through the steering wheel. And that's not to forget also all the other parts to the Land Rover, that the smaller movable bits that aren't really technically sort of Technic, but they're still movable and there's still things you can do that the McLaren simply doesn't. And that's what I like about the Land Rover so much. There's just a lot of functionality in it. And let's move on to my final thoughts. Now, which LEGO set out of these has won the comparison? Well, it's actually pretty obvious because this set is so much better. And the set that is so much better is the Land Rover. Now, what makes this set so special is that it comes with a lot of very unique things inside of it. And it comes with basically a really kind of compact yet feature-rich building experience, and it's also really nice to display as well. Meanwhile, the McLaren is basically a really nice looking shell, and the comparison reflects it. And the set that I would recommend you buy as a buyer would also be the Land Rover, simply because it's retiring sooner, but that's not even the main reason why I would actually even recommend it. I would recommend the Land Rover simply because it looks fantastic, but more importantly, it has so many functions in it that it's completely worth the $330 you spend. Meanwhile, with the McLaren, it's okay value for money, and it's a decent set, but you really should look to buy the set on sale, like what I did. I bought it for $225, I believe, and that was a far better value than paying the full $300 for it. And I've actually seen this set now as of the time of filming for even less, at $200, and it can get lower. So if you're looking out for the McLaren Formula 1 set, definitely be patient, but get it at a time where it's a bit cheaper. But out of these two, I still have to go with the Land Rover. It's just a far better LEGO set to buy, in my opinion. And if you're going to buy one, get the Land Rover, because it's going to be something truly special and truly enjoyable to build. And that's it. That's the comparison. Let me know what your thoughts are down below on these sets, and which one would you get? If you enjoyed the video, please smash the like button. And if you want to see more videos like this, then please subscribe. I hope you all have a glorious day and keep building.